Hi friends, I am Uday Kandpal and I welcome you all to yet another lecture on NCERT Class 8 History Chapter 5 with fact elaboration by Uday Kandpal. The name of the chapter is When People Rebel 1857 and After. So let's start. So we will first talk about the Indian Sepoy Mutiny. The Indian Sepoy Mutiny or the Indian Rebellion of 1857, also called as the 1857 की क्रांति in Hindi was a major, ultimately unsuccessful uprising in India in 1857-58 against the rule of the First East India Company, which functioned as a sovereign power on the behalf of the British Crown. The rebellion began on 10th May 1857 in the form of mutiny of sepoys of the company's army in the garrison town of Meerut, 40 miles 64 northeast of Delhi, now Old Delhi. It then erupted into the another mutinies and the civil rebellions, chiefly in the Upper Gangetic Plain and central India. Through incidents of revolt also occurred farther north and east. The rebellions posed a considerable threat to the British power in that region and was contained only with the rebels' defeat in the Gwalior on 20 June 1858. On 1 November 1858, the British granted amnesty to all the rebels not involved in the war, though they did not declare the hostilities to have formally ended until 8 July 1859. If the name is contested, and it is variously described as the Sepoy Mutiny, the Indian Mutiny, the Great Rebellion, the Revolt of 57, the Indian Insurrection, or the First War of Independence. After the outbreak of the mutiny in Meerut, the rebels quickly reached Delhi, whose 81-year-old Mughal ruler Bahadur Shah Zafar was declared the Emperor of Hindustan. Soon the rebels had captured the tracts of the northwestern provinces and Awadh. The East India Company's response came rapidly as well. With help from the reinforcements, Kanpur was taken by the mid-July 1857 and Delhi by the end of September. However, it then took the remainder of the 1857 and the better part of 1858 for the rebellion to be suppressed in Jhansi, Lucknow, and especially the Awadh countryside. Other regions of the company-controlled India, the Bengal province, the Bombay Presidency, and the Madras Presidency remained largely calm. In Punjab and the Sikh provinces crucially helped the Britain by providing both soldiers and support. The large princely states Hyderabad, Mysore, Travancore and Kashmir, as well as smaller ones of Rajputana, did not join the rebellion, serving the British. The Governor-General Lord Canning's world as breakwaters in a storm. From Meerut to Delhi. On 29 March 1857, a young soldier, Mangal Pandey, was hanged to death for attacking his officers in Barakpur. Some days later, some sepoys of the regiment of Meerut refused to go with the army drill during the new cartridges, which were suspected of being coated with the fat of cows and pigs. 85 sepoys were dismissed from service and sentenced to the 10 years in jail for disobeying their officers. This happened on 9th May 1857. The response of the other Indian soldiers in the Meerut was quite extraordinary. On 10th May, the soldiers marched to the jail in Meerut and released the imprisoned sepoys. They attacked and killed the British officers. They captured the guns and ammunition and set fire to the buildings and properties of the British and declared war of the Firangis. The soldiers were determined to bring an end to their rule in the country. Who would rule in the land instead? The soldiers had an answer to this question. The Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar. The sepoys of Meerut rode all night of 10th May to reach Delhi in the early hours of next morning. As news on their arrival spread, the regiments stationed in Delhi also rose up in rebellion. Again, British officers were killed, arms and ammunition seized, buildings set on fire. Triumphant soldiers gathered around the walls of the Red Fort where the Badshah lived, demanding to meet him. The emperor was not quite willing to challenge the mighty British power, but the soldiers persisted. They forced their way into the palace and proclaimed Bahadur Shah Zafar as their leader. The aging emperor had to accept the demand. He wrote letters to all the chiefs and the rulers of the country to come forward and organize a confederacy of Indian states to fight the British. The single step taken by Bahadur Shah Zafar had great implications. The Mughal dynasty had ruled over a very large part of the country. Most small rulers and chieftains controlled different territories on behalf of Mughal ruler. They threatened by the expansion of British rule. Many of them felt that if the Mughal emperor could rule again, they would be able to rule their own territories once more under the Mughal authority. The British had not expected this to happen. They thought the disturbance caused by the issue of the cartridges would die down. The Bahadur Shah Zafar's decision to bless the rebellion changed the entire situation dramatically. Often, when people see their alternative possible, they feel inspired and enthusiastic. It gives them the courage, hope, and the confidence to act. Cause of the rebellion. The Indian Rebellion of 1857 occurred as a result of accumulation accumulation of factors over time rather than any single event. The sepoys were Indian soldiers who were recruited in the company's army just before the rebellion. There were 3 lakh sepoys in the army compared to the 50,000 Britishers. The forces were divided into 3 presidencies: the Bombay, Madras, and Bengal. The Bengal President Army recruited higher castes such as Rajputs and Bhumihar, mostly from the Awadh and the Bihar regions, and even restricted the enlistment of lower caste in 1855. In contrast, the Madras Army and the Bombay Army were more localized, caste-neutral armies that did not prefer high caste men. The domination of higher castes in the Bengal army had been blamed in the part for initial mutinies that led to the rebellion. After the annexation of Oudh by the East India Company in 1856, many sepoys were disquelled both from the losing their requisites as landed gentry in the Oudh courts and from the anticipations of any increased land revenue payments that annexation might bring about. A major cause of resentment that arose 10 months prior to the outbreak of rebellion was General Established Service Enlistment Act of 25 July 1856. As noted above, the men of Bengal Army and exempted from overseas service. Specifically, they were enlisted only for the service in territories to which they could march. On 29 March 1857, at the Barakpur Parade ground near Calcutta, 29-year-old Mangal Pandey of the 34th BNI, angered by the recent actions of the East India Company, declared that he would rebel against the commanders. Informed about the Pandey's behavior, Sergeant Major James Hewson went to investigate, only to have Pandey shoot at him. Hewson raised the alarm. Bob came out to investigate the unrest. Pandey opened a fire but hit Bog's horses instead. The attacks by the punishment of the Pandey is widely seen as opening scene of what came to be known as the Indian Rebellion of 1857. Knowledge of his action was widespread among his fellow sepoys and assumed to have been one of the factors leading to the general series of mutinies that broke out during the following months. Mangal Pandey would prove to be influential for later figures in the Indian nationalist movement like V.D. Sarkar, who viewed his motive as one of the earliest manifestations of the Indian nationalism. Modern Indian nationalism portray Pandey as the mastermind behind the conspiracy to revolt against the British, although portray Pandey as the mainstream behind the conspiracy to revolt against the British. Although a recently published analysis of events immediately preceding the outbreak of concludes that there is a historical evidence to back up any of the revisionist interpretations. The company fights back. Unnerved by the scale of upheaval, the company decided to repress the revolt with all its might. It brought reinforcements from England, passed new laws so that the rebels would be convicted with the ease, and then moved into the storm centers of the revolt. Delhi was recaptured from the rebel forces in September 1857. The last Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar was tried in court and sentenced to life imprisonment. His son was shot dead before his eyes. He and his wife Begum Jeenat Mahal were sent in the prison in Rangoon in October 1858. Bahadur Shah Zafar died in Rangoon jail in November 1862. The recapture of Delhi, however, did not mean the rebellion died out after that. People continued to resist and battle the British. The British had to fight for 2 years to suppress the massive forces of popular rebellion. Lucknow was taken in March 1858. Rani Lakshmi was defeated and killed in the June 1858. Tantia Tope escaped to the jungles of central India and continued to fight a guerrilla war with the support of many tribal and peasant leaders. He was captured, tried, and killed in April 1859. Just as victories against the British had earlier encouraged rebellion, the defeat of rebel forces encouraged desertions. The British also tried their best to win back the loyalties of the people. They announced rewards for the loyal landholders who would be allowed to continue to enjoy traditional rights over their lands. Those who had rebelled were told that if they submitted to the British and if they had not killed any white people. Aftermath of the revolt. The Britain had regained control of the country by the end of 1859, but they could not carry the ruling of land with the same policies have anymore. Given below are the important changes that were introduced by the British. The British Parliament passed a new act in the 1858 and transferred the powers of the East India Company to the British Crown in order to ensure a more responsible management of Indian affairs. A member of British Cabinet was appointed Secretary of the State for India and made responsible for all matters related to the governance of India. He was given a council to advise him called the Indian Council. The Governor General of India was given the title of Viceroy, that is a personal representative of the Crown. Through these measures, the British government accepted direct responsibility for ruling India. All the ruling chiefs of the country were assured and that their territory will be annexed in future. They also allowed to pass on their kingdoms to their heirs, including adopted sons. However, they were made acknowledge the British queens of the sovereign paramount. Thus, the Indian rulers were hold their kingdom subordinates of the British crown. It was decided that the proportion of the Indian soldiers in the army would be reduced and the number of the European soldiers would be increased. It was also decided that instead of recruiting soldiers from Awadh, Bihar and central India and South India, more soldiers would be recruited from the among the Gurkhas, Sikhs and Pathans. The land and the property of Muslims was confiscated on the large scale and they treated with suspicion and hostility. The British believed that they were responsible for the rebellion in a big way. The British decided to respect the customary religious and social practices of the people in India. Policies were made to protect the landlords and zamindars and give them security of rights over their lands. So hope you learned a lot from this lecture. Hope you learned a lot for the competitive exam as well. Thank you for watching. Bye bye. Have a nice day.